Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Hey, all you minties, Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for your advanced look at the latest printing of the new Avengers Omnibus, Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on January 7th or 8th of 2025. We are looking at 2025. That's crazy to think about just how fast time goes. This is the direct market cover. This is the one that is supplied by Joe Quesada. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover, and that is the one that is supplied by David Finch. That's the one that's going to be available everywhere, while the one here on the right-hand side, the direct market cover supplied by Joe Quesada, that's only available through the direct market, so places like your local comic book store or cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, comicsbugle.com, dyingbreedcollectors.com, organicpricebooks.com, Tales of Wonder, In-Stock Trades, DCBS, and places like that. But everything underneath the dust jacket is the same, so let's shift the focus back to this. While I have the dust jacket on, I'm going to go ahead and put it here on the shelf where it belongs in the reading order of Avengers. So this takes place before the Jonathan Hickman series and after the Kurt Busiek run of Avengers. However, you still need the Chuck Austin, I can't believe I just said that, and Jeff Johns era of Avengers to be collected to map it between Kurt Busiek Volume 2 and New Avengers. So here are our key players. By the way, this is a series of connecting covers, and then Joe Quesada redrew it for like a variant. It's pretty cool. I'll show you in the inside here. The New Avengers: Bendis, Finch, McNiven, Cho, Deodato, Yu, Copiel, Maliv, Chaikin, Ferry, Shung, and Silvestri. Even Silvestri gets top billing. Volume 1, he did one issue in here. The back of the book here, collecting the textless covers that are going to be found in here, but not, I don't want to say, not everything is on the back here. And then the ISBN, retail price being $125. Now, this has been 12 years since the original printing of the Omnibus came out. So 12 years ago in 2012, the original printing came out. I never picked it up because I had these books right here, the oversized hardcovers, and I thought, well, they're not adding anything special, so I'm just going to keep the oversized hardcovers. These have been out of print for far longer. Believe it or not, all of this, all four of these hardcovers, Avengers Disassembled, Volumes 1, 2, and 3, are in this omnibus. So while I can't compare it to the original printing, I will compare it to what the paper stock and art looks like in these OHCs. Alright, underneath the dust jacket, let's look over here at the flaps. Disassembled, reassembled, mightier than ever. And giving you what the characters are that you're going to find in here, and then a little bio on the creators like Brian Michael Bendis and the artists like David Finch and Steve McNiven, Frank Cho, Mike Deodato Jr., and Lionel Francis Yu. And underneath the dust jacket is this shattered A of Avengers because they've been disassembled. How exactly were they disassembled? What happened to this team? Well, I will be talking about that. So I'll go ahead and crack this open, talk about the stories found in here, looking at this artwork, and then, of course, the extras in the back, and then the build of the book, and a quick little comparison to the OHCs. All right, let's go ahead and get this book open. We have red end sheets here, the New Avengers title page with the Sentry, Luke Cage, Spider-Woman, Captain America, and Spider-Man there, and oh my gosh, just looking at the Avengers finale, they break down who the artist is, the colorist, and the penciler by pages. It's really crazy. But it is broken down by different story arcs here, and then sometimes different issues. For example, like the Civil War era had different artists working on each different issue. Then, of course, a little bit over here from Civil War, The Initiative, The Confession, and the Initiative really kicking off this other era of the Avengers. So we do go back to Avengers 500. I showed you that this belongs right after Kurt Busiek run, but really this is right after the Chuck Austen run on Avengers. So kicking it off with issue 500. So collected in here is Avengers 500 to 503, so they went back to the original numbering. Avengers Finale, New Avengers 1 through 31, Annual Number 1, New Avengers Most Wanted Files, New Avengers Custom 676 Army and Air Force, Giant Size Spider-Woman number 1, New Avengers Illuminati number 1, Civil War The Confession, Civil War The Initiative. This book has 1,208 pages, and again, retails for $125. So let's go ahead and talk about Avengers Disassembled. To set up the Avengers, the new Avengers, I do need to talk about Avengers Disassembled. So if you've never read it, I am going to be talking about spoilers. Not deep spoilers as to exactly how things happen, but who is behind this and then where it kind of leads in. So if you've never read it, by all means, put me on mute. But even putting me on mute is going to spoil some things. So, all right. At the very, very beginning, we've got the Avengers sitting around the mansion, joking around, because this is, again, Bendis. There's a security breach. And who's at the gate? None other than Jack of Hearts. But Jack of Hearts was already dead if you had read the Jeff Johnson, then, of course, Chuck Austen era. And Scott Lang remembers. He's like, dude, what are you doing here? And boom, blows up. That's right. Somebody's coming in with a vengeance, but why send in Jack of Hearts? This nuclear bomb blows up, and it's Jack of Hearts and Scott Lang dead. So within the first few pages, by the way, if you're reading Avengers right now, and you're like, wait a second, Scott Lang? Yeah, it's comics. You've got the character of Tony Stark here being accused of drunk during the summit. Of drunk, is that a thing? Of being drunk during this summit right here. And him realizing he hasn't had a drop in a long time. So somebody is attacking the Avengers. Vision comes flying in with one of the Avengers jet planes and crashes there. And then this is where he gets creepy. Vision starts melting apart and releases a bunch of these little spheres where Ultron appears. And of course, there's connections between Ultron and Vision. And the Avengers are now realized they are being attacked. So this team of She-Hulk and Captain Britain, Captain America, and Hawkeye, the team that was being written by, of course, Chuck Austen, they're the ones that are still Avengers during this time. You have Falcon. And yeah, within the very first few pages, you've got some Avengers being killed off. Like the Vision is being ripped apart by She-Hulk because she's going savage. They're being attacked and they don't know exactly who is pulling the strings. So through the first issues of this Avengers Disassembled storyline, this is where the Avengers assemble and get every backup recruit, everybody that has ever been an Avenger to come to Avengers Mansion to try to figure out exactly who is doing the attacking. So eventually, even the Kree get involved. But is it really the Kree? Not like this. Like this part right here, where Hawkeye gets hit and decides, I'm not going to go out like some punk. I'm going to go out like a man. And takes a jetpack from one of the Kree and crashes into the Kree ship, making Captain America and the rest of the Avengers snap and just scream, Avengers Assemble. So it is that type of story that we're kicking it off with. Like, we are kicking it off with this big invasion at Avengers Mansion. They're getting killed off. Who is exactly behind this and why? Well, I'll tell you who. I think a lot of people probably know, but in order for me to talk about New Avengers and the things that are happening later on, I have to talk about the revelation as to who was behind it. You can find out why, but it is none other than Scarlet Witch. And by the end of this, there's a huge attack. She's using her powers to make sure that these things are affecting the Avengers, tearing them apart. And by the end of it, Magneto takes her away. We'll talk about it a little bit where she goes here in a few. There's a flashback to that classic issue of the Avengers where Captain America says, hey, here's your new team, who were villains at one time, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Hawkeye. So the finale is really a goodbye era to the Avengers. They realize that they cannot keep together Captain Britain, or this era of Captain Britain, who was created during the Chuck Austen run and goes on and leaves and becomes Lionheart in the pages of the Exiles. But the Avengers end up leaving one by one. They can't stay. Hank ends up leaving with Wanda, and it's really Captain America and Tony Stark, who are left, like, what are we going to do? They go through a series of flashbacks with different artists portraying each of these classic moments, like the Korvac saga, or Thanos and Captain Marvel, and the Ultron Unbound storyline. But this beautiful piece by George Perez right here. I remember they did a tribute to George, like once an Avenger, always an Avenger. So they go through all of the different people that have died, all the different Avengers that are no longer with us, and so ends the Avengers. For now. New Avengers. Okay, so New Avengers kicks off. I don't think they even missed a month. Like, New Avengers kicked off right after the Avengers Disassembled storyline, and it is all about the Rikers Island maximum security prison and how villains are breaking out of there. So Jessica Drew and Luke Cage and Matt Murdock are all involved. They're all heading to Rikers Island. And eventually there's a breakout. So that's what the first few issues of New Avengers is a breakout. However, it's not just the villains. This is so cool, by the way. This is where David Finch comes in and revamps the Avengers. Not really recreating new costumes, because he's usually using these costumes that they're known for. But he becomes the ongoing series artist, because he did do the art here for the Avengers Disassembled. Now, there are characters in here like Carnage, and whether you agree what happens to Carnage or not in issue number 2, that's up to you. But one of the people that is being held at Rikers is this guy named Bob, who we haven't seen for a long time. Paul Jenkins created the character of the Sentry to be kind of like a retcon character, a character that was supposed to exist back in the 60s, and then we all forgot about him. As a matter of fact, the marketing play was very genius. It was like, Stan Lee created this character, and we just found the pages and the issues where he was supposed to show up, and we're going to release them. And all it was a retcon series, or a retro series, if you will. And the world forgot about the Sentry. So this will become your New Avengers. What's not collected in here is this Secret War that will have its own omnibus, but that kind of sets up who the New Avengers are going to be. So Tony and Cap decide, we're going to recruit a new team, because somebody from the inside, somebody from S.H.I.E.L.D. actually is behind the prison break, but we would need to find out why. So we have Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman come in, Spider-Man is recruited, Luke Cage is recruited, so one by one they're recruiting members. Daredevil's like, no thank you, I'm going to roll solo. Although later on, Daredevil does have an idea. And then eventually Wolverine will join them. And the other character I talked about was Sentry. There's this storyline right here, again tying it to the breakout and leading them to Sauron and the Savage Land, and who may be behind the scenes pulling the strings. Maybe. But yes, this will be your team right here. You've got Sentry, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Woman, and Captain America, Wolverine, and this mysterious character name is Ronin. Now, the next issue is, or this next story arc, the artwork is by Steve McNiven. It's absolutely beautiful. This is more on the Sentry, and it gets really meta. It gets really, like, surreal, if you will, as to what is really happening and what isn't. And for the first time, we meet this group of characters that are incognito. Nobody really knows that they have secret meetings, and this is known as the Illuminati, who will play a bigger part in the one-shot. But yes, this is all about the Sentry and trying to recruit him, and then the Illuminati talking about, okay, Tony, then the Avengers are taking full responsibility for the Sentry. This is the military giveaway issue where the Avengers and the Fantastic Four team up to take down the Kree. Now, there was a whole mystery as to who Ronin was, so the next arc is all about Ronin. David Finch comes back as the ongoing artist, and this is where you get that flashback of Captain America approaching Daredevil and asking him to join, but Daredevil's like, I can't, but, I may be able to point you in the right direction. So it's most of this taking place in Japan. And it's Ronin taking down the Silver Samurai and Clan Yoshida and the Hand. And again, the mystery of who Ronin is revealed towards the end here. There's also another mystery with Spider-Woman. How exactly does she get her powers back? And we start getting hints in the Spider-Woman special, and then the next story in here by Frank Cho. My goodness, of course you have to get Frank Cho to draw these issues with Spider-Woman. Woo! Anyway, what the hell was I saying? Oh yes, the mystery as to how she got her powers back, and is she really one of the good guys or not? Carol Danvers makes an appearance again, and sort of joining the Avengers for a while. The New Avengers, keep calling them the Avengers. Now, they're in between. I'm going to tell you what to do here. In between the storylines of the Sentry and the New Avengers guest starring the Fantastic Four, I strongly suggest reading House of M if you want to get the full story. Because something will happen. Where Wanda went, she went to the pages of Excalibur, not the original Excalibur by Chris Claremont and Alan Davis, but the Chris Claremont and Aaron Lopresti series, where he's hanging out with Magneto. Magneto took her back to Muir Island, and that all leads into the House of M crossover. And the House of M, of course, has that infamous line, the "No more mutants." There is a power that is coming to Earth and wipes the floor with Alpha Flight. And it is this person known as the Collective. And that's what the storyline is. But it ties heavily to House of M and perhaps where the powers originated from. And this is like an aftermath, because this is where you get to see where Magneto has been. And it's funny because this is also collected in another omnibus that's coming out this week. This little storyline right here, the Collective, and that is the X-Men Decimation storyline. Then we get, I think this is the annual. Yes, the annual with the Super Adaptoid. Who is this new Super Adaptoid, and how are the New Avengers handling her? We get the Illuminati one-shot. Now, if you want a full reading experience, read the Fantastic Four by JMS. They have this whole story where the Hulk kind of goes savage and destroys Vegas, and this is what the Illuminati are meaning about. And then, of course, this leads into Planet Hulk. I do love this era of comics. No, it's not just Marvel, it's DC too, where comics are interconnected, where one thing is happening in Avengers, it's affecting the things that are going to happen later on in Planet Hulk, and then, of course, that leads into World War Hulk. I love that, because if you're going to have an interconnected universe, that makes sense. Right? You're going to have one little snowball roll into a bigger snowball that affects other comic books. And that's the way interconnected universes should be. For a while, it felt like Marvel wasn't doing that, especially with titles like Avengers and X-Men. It felt like they were doing their own thing. But House of M really kind of brought it all together, despite of how some people, including myself, feel about that book. Now, Civil War. I see a lot of comments like, why didn't they include Civil War in the Epic Collection? Why didn't they include New Avengers in a Civil War omnibus? I will say, if we ever get a Civil War omnibus, and I'm sure we will one day, mapping that sucker is going to be near impossible, because I think people mix up crossovers and events. And whenever you have an event is usually, if it's done in a miniseries, that's the basic, like, the necessities that you need to read. Unless the writer also happens to be writing some other titles too, like, I don't know, like Zdarsky's Daredevil, right? You have Zdarsky's Daredevil and Devil's Reign. It makes sense to put those issues in between. Events, I always use Flashpoint, are a nightmare to map, because if you go the route of Flashpoint, you're going to put in every issue of New Avengers, every issue of Wolverine, every issue of Captain America. There's only one issue of Captain America, or Heroes for Hire. It just doesn't make any sense. In between the 7 issues of Civil War, you're going to lose track as to what the hell is going on. Because unfortunately, even though it's an interconnected universe, let's be real, like, Mark Miller was doing his own thing in Civil War and didn't really care what anybody else was writing at the time. Didn't care about Wolverine and the effects it would have on Wolverine or anything like that. It was up to every other writer and editor to get together and be like, okay, this is how it would affect this character. This is how it would affect this character. So what they do is they give you a small synopsis as to what happened in Civil War and how it's affecting the different characters with different artists on each of the books. Like you have Captain America here, and how the initiative, signing the Registration Act is affecting him. I think this is a really good issue right here, where realistically how it affects a family like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and how Iron Man comes in there. It's kind of creepy and scary. Oh, man, anytime you have Olivier Coipel, love his art. This is, again, Spider-Woman. What side is she playing here? Is she really for S.H.I.E.L.D.? And then, of course, there's the whole breakup between Captain America and Iron Man, which was... they did a really good job, I thought, an excellent job of translating that into the MCU. I forgot to mention that, yes, the mansion is no longer, so the Avengers are now living in the new Avengers or the Avengers Tower. This issue of Civil War, New Avengers, ties heavily into the Iron Man run, which will be the next story arc. Then we have the Confession, which are two different stories from two different time periods during Civil War. So I suggest reading Civil War before reading any of these issues of New Avengers, if you want to really, really know what's going on. Now, one of my favorite issues that is collected in here is this right here. This is the Initiative. And the variant cover of this, that sparked a lot of interest in this character of the Patriot, which will play a big role later on in the Dark Avengers. So the Initiative was a one-shot that said, okay, this is going to be the new status quo of the Marvel Universe. So we're going to have, new titles announced, and they're going to be announced through this initiative. So you've got like Omega Flight here, taking over Alpha Flight with new characters like Spider-Woman, Beta Ray Bill. You've got the new Thunderbolts here, which will take over the Thunderbolt series, and that's the Warren Ellis era of the Thunderbolts. And the most important thing is the division between the Avengers. You've got Captain America Avengers, and then you've got Iron Man's Avengers. So the team that was with Captain America will remain in the pages of New Avengers. And the team that followed Iron Man will be in this new comic called the Mighty Avengers, which is not collected here, which will be interesting to see if it will be collected in a Volume 2. And the other question is, will there be a Volume 2? You damn right there's going to be a Volume 2. You make sure you're subscribed to Near Mint Condition, because he's going to tell you when it will come out. There's your small hint for watching my videos. Thank you all so much. And thank you all so much for pre-ordering this book, because that's how stuff like that happens. All right, so this is... I can't believe I'm going through each story arc. I'm sorry. Didn't think I would, but here we are. So this is the story of post House of M and what happens to some of these characters. I don't want to reveal who, because I've already talked about House of M and Avengers Disassembled enough. But it is an interesting story, and we'll have a new status quo on some of these characters that have pre-existed. The mystery of Ronin takes us deep back to Japan, and now this time around, Electra is involved. And this, again, is the team of, or I guess it will be the leftover team of Captain America's team. So you've got characters like Spider-Man and Luke Cage, this time around with Iron Fist and the character of Doctor Strange helping out. So you've got this team right here. Ronin, Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Spider-Woman, and Luke Cage, who is now leading the team. Going to take down the Hand, because there's this huge fight. And why is Electra turning evil, though? What's going on? Well, this story arc right here will lead into a big event, which I guess should be mapped in Volume 2. Now, that will be an event that I'm interested to see if they would include in Volume 2 or not, because that's actually written by Brian Michael Bendis, and I feel like that event is super important. Whereas House of M was more of an astonishing or more of an X-Men type of event, I see the next event being, in my mind, I think should be mapped. So here we have the big fight against the Mighty Avengers that I was talking about. That's Iron Man's Avengers and his new team. Then, of course, later on, that will lead into the whole Dark Avengers era and the Dark Reign era of Marvel. Now, that is the story arc that ends this omnibus. And I'm censoring that final page because I wanted to talk about this variant. This variant's really interesting because this is the New Avengers #1 variant. But as you can see, Ronin had a different design. And they ditched that design for more of the samurai ninja look. That design was later on used for a character in Bendis' Uncanny X-Men. So somebody really liked that design. This is the connecting covers I was talking about that Quesada redrew, but you had different artists take a crack at it first. So you've got Steve McNiven, you've got Trevor Hairsine, you've got Olivier Coipel, you've got Jim Chung, Adi Granov, Brian Hitch, and then the connecting covers, which is different than the cover here, and of course the cover used for the omnibus, because this is using their own styles, while this is all redrawn by Joe Quesada. And then the variants. There weren't a lot of variants back then, but I really like these retro variants right here. And they're done by just... By the way, I need to go back to these retro variants because these are legends. You've got Neil Adams, John Romita Sr., you've got Herb Trimpe, you've got Sal Buscema. And what's sad is that, just looking back, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that 3 of these gentlemen are now gone. Our pal Sal's still with us. And then more of the variants, the connecting variants right here of New Avengers 27 and Mighty Avengers #1. More of the variants, and then these are hardcovers. Oh, and this is the it's kind of like the Handbook of the Marvel Universe, but this is New Avengers Most Wanted files. So it goes through all these villains that were in the Breakout storyline, and some of them that were in the Secret War. Here's your interview with Brian Michael Bendis from the director's cut. All the little thumbnails of the Avengers covers that lead to 500 and the final issue, well, the final issue for now, and then more of the director's cut, like the script, bio on the villains right here. This is from that one scene where they're all standing around listening to Electro. Pencils, so lots of extras. Variant, and that is the pencil, including that character again. Internal pages. This is Steve McNiven pages here. Frank Cho's. I always thought that piece was awesome from Steve McNiven. Olivia Coipel, Leno Francis Yu, and Wizard covers here. So lots of extras and your end sheets. Let's look at the binding. 1,208 pages. It is sewn binding. This one printed at the Donley printer. So you do have really minimal gutter loss going on through these pages. Here, let's go through the beginning here. So something like this. Yeah, absolutely minimal gutter loss. It's great. And as far as the bleed through, it's there, but it's not as noticeable as I've seen in the past. I'm trying to find a lot of these stories take place in the dark here. Oh, yeah, here we go. So yeah, I can't even tell there. Not as thick as the paper stocks from the oversized hardcovers. But also not as thin as they were in the past. So actually, what I want to do is compare this to this. There we go. Man, I'm good. So you get more gutter loss over here. Let's zoom out a little bit. There we go. So you actually get more gutter loss over here than over here. It's minimal. And as far as the paper stock, yes, the paper stock of the OHCs of long ago are thicker. And textless covers. This tells you exactly what you are. This, you know, you're reading New Avengers, so. Colors look a little more greenish, like the tones are a little more greenish in the OHC. But then again, this is the dark. Let's look to, there we go. Let's look at some of these. Man, I'm getting good at this. So, again, the white's right there, which I can't even tell. If I'm looking for it, yes, there's a little bit of bleed through happening. And the colors have like a little greenish tone over here compared to these over here. And that also could be due to the new scans that they're using. But that is it. That is the New Avengers era. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors. BD Cosmos, the Canadian leader in graphic novels. They have a physical storefront in Montreal, Quebec, and their website, bdcosmos.com, offers 25% off your order of over $99 or more, and free shipping everywhere in Canada for every order of $200 or more.
Their shipping care is exceptional. Your books will stay cozy through the rough Canadian weather and arrive to you in near mint condition.
After checkout, let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way, and you'll be added to the monthly $25 gift card raffle. Entries are valid for new and returning customers.
Don't be afraid to call or email them. Ask them questions. Their staff is always happy to help guide you towards the right purchase. Visit their website, bdcosmos.com, for more. BD Cosmos, with rewards and raffles taking care of customers in Canada. Eh?
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you already have this, if you're hoping one day we'll get a volume 2, if you've never read New Avengers and you've been waiting for this omnibus reprint, you've been picking it up in Epic Collections, or if you owned it already in oversized hardcovers. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button. And that's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.